Okay, we're having this meeting tonight at 6:02 for the Town of Dayton Finance Committee with the Board of Selectmen. Today is Wednesday, June 28th at 6 o'clock. It's a hybrid meeting via Zoom and in person at Old Town Hall, 1111 Somerset Avenue. This meeting is being recorded. The listing of the matters are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. Again, this is a joint Zoom meeting. Meeting ID number is 876-7382-0901. The passcode is 612034. And the phone number to call in is 309-205-3325. Can I have the meeting call to order, please?
Leonard Hull is present.
Yep, Romello is present.
And Peter Karen is present.
You guys just have to organize us.
Okay, so we do what?
Just organize the committee.
Okay, you're organized.
They have to pick a chairman.
Yeah, so as the past chair, I'll take nominations for the next chair.
Nominate Peter Rose to be chairman.
Second.
All those in favor?
Since I got one member, I do think we
Oh, on,
individually.
yeah.
Oh, Susan,
Sue, you wanna?
she has
Since she's waiting.
point of order.
Here, Peter Roach,
Point of order.
Yes.
She has to, under the roll, give her name for the record before you take the vote.
okay.
Yes, no, yes. Right. And Sue did join and tried to join again. Sue, can you hear us? Joining. Sue, can you hear us now?
You guys pick a co-chair?
We don't,
No.
How about a clerk? You have a clerk?
we have a clerk, but we don't have to nominate a clerk.
Okay.
Sue, can you hear us? I think you need to unmute Sue.
While you're doing that, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Of the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
We just need.
So would you be able to announce yourself, who you are as a member of the FinCom and just indicate that you're present?
okay. My name is Susan Lorenz, member of the Finance Committee, and I am present by Zoom at this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, we're reorganizing the Finance Committee, and again, you're going to elect a chair with Sue here now.
Yes,
A second, so roll call for myself as chairman.
Yep.
Peter Roach is aye.
You'll approve
You're voting or not?
Oh.
Yeah, are you voting the nomination or?
yes.
Stated.
Yeah.
Aye.
Andrew Horton, aye. Doug White, aye.
Great,
Susan Lorenz, aye.
Okay.
Do we need the two members that didn't say their name?
yeah, we should, for the roll call.
Ron McKay, aye. And you.
Okay, now do you want to elect a clerk?
So the next step would be a clerk, and typically it is the newest member, but since we have 5 new members. I don't know how you guys want to handle that.
Does anybody want to be a clerk? Okay, put the names in a hat and withdraw one.
What is
Taking minutes in the event that it's not recorded and substituting yourself for the chair when the chair is not here.
So is this, I thought we just voted.
Though when the chair is not here for a particular meeting, you as clerk or whoever the clerk would be, would fill in as the chair.
So minutes only have to be taken if the meeting is not recorded.
A clarification, they always need to be taken and there needs to be a written record of each meeting, the votes, a general overview or summary of the discussion as well. As part of the minutes.
Okay, so this is a vote, right?
Well, we have to have a nomination first.
Or.
Clerk.
Nomination.
Yeah, so between the 4 or 5 of you, somebody has to be the clerk.
You,
Now I am, yeah.
okay, so have we already nominated him?
Yeah, and you approved it. You voted on it just a couple of minutes ago.
So I need to vote.
For a clerk, somebody has to be the clerk. So it's up to the 5 of you to pick a clerk. Unless Sue Lorenz would like to do it.
He is not.
Never done it.
No.
Be interested in becoming.
Sue?
Well, since I am already chairing the Finance Advisory Committee with DR, I would like if somebody could take over these clerk responsibilities.
There are a couple of other positions that the finance committee have representatives at. One of them is the DR. Finance committee. Another is the capital outlay committee. Both of those do take up a decent amount of time. So probably should be somebody who's not planning on being a capital outlay or on the school side.
I'll volunteer to get my feet wet with it and if I need some help, I'll just need Alina somewhere.
Yeah, I can send you just examples of the rest.
Thank you.
So do we have a second?
Second.
Little quick at the draw there.
Andrew.
So Andrew Horton is nominated to be, and he's been seconded to be the clerk. And now you have to vote on it.
All in favor?
Doug White, aye.
Ron McKay, aye.
Bill Mello, aye. Bill Pruitt, aye.
Peter Roach, aye.
Susan Lorenz, aye.
Great, thank you. And now I believe you guys have to propose fiscal year 2023 year-end transfers.
The only thing left on our agenda, we don't have any minutes tonight, would be the approval of a transfer request from the reserve fund for the Medicare costs. Paul went over it with most everybody. Did he get to you, Bill?
Yes.
Regarding what the transfer was, this money is basically going to be moving from the reserve fund over to Medicare. Reserve fund would have about a $10,000 balance in it.
It would end the fiscal year with about a balance in. Yeah, right around $10,000, yes.
Which will end up closing into free cash. We're not needing them that we're aware of. They won't be transferred funds. Questions on that?
Does Sue know what you're voting on?
Yes.
Okay.
I do have a copy of the transfer.
Okay. Paul did go over it individually here. If you have questions, Paul's here.
I do have one question. On number 3, present balance in the appropriation is a negative amount. What does that mean?
So that is presently overspent on that line item. On the, are you on the Zoom?
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
Sue, are you able to hear me?
I am.
Okay, perfect. So that line is presently overspent, so the reserve fund requested will cover what is currently overspent as well as the anticipated final payroll runs.
All righty. Thank you.
Pleasure, thank you.
All right, I don't only.
Yeah, please.
So. We set the budgets so that we can work within the budgets and we exceeded the budget. How do we catch the additional expenditures before we end up going negative for next year?
That's a great question. It is kind of a moving target, so it is difficult to anticipate what departmental overtime budgets are going to be. And we want to set these required contribution amounts in a way that is going to be based on the budgeted personnel expenses with a healthy contingency, but at the same time, we don't want to over budget either. You know, we don't want to fluff a line item. Just to be overly protective of overtime. But at the same time, we do model these off of last year. So the fiscal 22 budget for the Medicare contributions was $82,000, which did require a reserve fund transfer last year, but it was only about $9.43. So it was pretty much right on the money. And anticipating that in government, we've generally, raises typically somewhere in the 2.5% ballpark. Generally speaking, as long as overtime remains relatively consistent, the budget increase of $2,000 is the equivalent of roughly 2.45% increase versus fiscal 22, which is designed to inject a little bit of contingency without, to account for the raises. Ideally, that if you look at, anticipate 2% raises and you increase the amount by 2%, and you ought to be right on the money. And for reasons like overtime, it is responsible to build in a little bit of contingency, but at the same time, you can very easily go overboard with that kind of thing.
So, I think that the budget was well planned. The issue, I don't think was in the budgeting. I think it was in the approval of overtime. So how is that process executed? Because somebody at some point needed to be approved to spend us into negative territory. So don't we have a process to prevent that from happening?
Well, the departments, let's say accounting went into overtime beyond what was budgeted. They would have to come to the finance committee to, you guys would have to approve whether or not they could be allowed to go beyond what their budget is. And I don't know, are the Board of Selectmen involved in that as well? It just.
So a department can have an overtime budget, like can spend within the overtime budget, but that would be different. But it's a separate line from the Medicare account. And but the issue is, as departments deal with overtime within their approved departmental budget, so it does have a secondary impact then on the Medicare line.
Okay.
And so it's a secondary impact, but it is still an impact. And a lot of our overtime requirements are contractual. Like just with the fire department, for example, we have based on our shift staffing, we have three groups that staff the fire department. So on a 24-hour cycle, the whole 24-hour period on a Saturday, so is not actually part of the of the 3-group cycle. So every time that there's a Saturday, and we don't have any call firefighters or paramedics who are interested in taking the 24-hour Saturday shift, we have to pay. We are required to order a full-time firefighter paramedic to fill either all or part of that shift to have an overtime rate. That's why those are the unpredictable things, because we can't based on the current fire department staffing, and we've had especially in FY23, we've had an increased prevalence of our call personnel not interested in taking the Saturday shifts. That has driven up the fire department overtime budget, and based on how we've trended, that has actually been way more significant based on our call force, not actually interested in taking those shifts. So that's one of the very unpredictable things. And so yes, the fire department, so it's working within their budget, but it is having a secondary impact on the Medicare line.
Right. I don't want to speak for Bill, but I think correct me if I'm wrong, you were asking, how does it get to, you're at the point now there's overtime. And you want to know who approves that overtime. Beyond, obviously, the budget is $20,000 for overtime. I don't know. But beyond that 20,000, who okays that additional overtime?
Mr. Chairman, a year ago, we had a problem in the Board of Assessors office with spending beyond their budget. And we set up a protocol. And that protocol was that the town accountant, when at a line item or a budget, but in the red, that they would notify the town administrator. So the town administrator would work with the department head to have a true understanding what's going on, and also to inform the Board of Selectmen if it was an issue to the point that we had to address it. Apparently, that is not happened, because
That absolutely happened here.
I wasn't aware of it until this evening.
And yes, because the weekly Medicare payroll. Oh, yeah. The weekly Medicare payroll cost is about $1,000. So we just literally went in the negative, and to the town accountant's credit, as soon as that happened, she let Paul and I know. As soon as that happened. That's how serious
This
we took it.
happened this week.
Yes. Yep.
Just to follow up on the question. Medicare itself is it's a math problem. It's 1.45% of payroll. But we typically don't, and I guess this is a leading question. We typically don't take, when we're setting the Medicare budget, we don't take every payroll line, every overtime line that's approved in the budget and take 1.45%, because in most cases, we do end up with overages. Free cash, we never spend as much on overtime as budgeted. So to take 1.45% of all of that number would end up, that number would have been 110,000 last year as opposed to 82,000. The gist,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That makes sense.
It does, what concerns me about how we're calculating that though, is that it sounds like we have the Medicare as kind of like an afterthought. So everybody that works overtime is now hourly rate. That's how we can figure out whether or not they're working within the budget. But you need to load that hourly rate with overhead. And this Medicare tax is an overhead that should be included in that hourly rate when we're calculating whether or not we're going to bust the budget. So we should rework how we load the numbers when we're figuring out how much each of our overtime resources cost.
That's going to be a challenge going forward between police and fire, running through the same issue with the call on call.
Yes. But the point is well taken. We have, from what I understand, how the treasurer's office has is just based on straight payroll and incorporating some type of even if financially we can't do the whole overtime methodology, having some type of overtime methodology in there included, so we do have an overtime buffer. And yeah, I think is the point that's being made here, correct?
They're probably just adjusting it going forward
Yeah.
for these changes
Yes.
now.
Just for clarification, item number 1 is 40, 50, 69, which is what you're requesting, but we have a negative of 2050.69. Does that 40, 50, 69 include that negative? Or do we need an additional 20, 50, 69 to come out of the negative?
No, that 40, 50, 69 should be all inclusive. That is, that includes the present balance of the negative 20, 50, as well as the anticipated contributions through the end of the fiscal year.
There's another payroll this week.
Yes.
So that difference in payroll for this week. Did that answer?
I heard some agreement that we needed to make an adjustment to our approach, but who's gonna do that?
I think that needs to come as part of the future budgeting process. And I mean, the Medicare budget that does begin in the treasurer's office. So that's where that methodology will start. And then it will continue through the budget process.
We don't have to wait till next year. We can document or make it, the process is documented.
Yes, so, and yeah, so we can. And we can come up with a methodology. Where we would prematurely go to the reserve fund. We typically don't go to the reserve fund until we know. There's actually going to be an issue and we are actually forecasting out to a real issue, or based on how we're trending, we could we could take a request that includes the updated methodology, the special town meeting as well. Those are our options at this point.
One of the things that we asked of Mike in the departments is to start the budget process now, but while it's still fresh in everybody's mind. So something like that would be something that could get discussed fairly early in the process instead of waiting until February of next year. Typically, everybody gets crammed with budgets, and by the end of it, they're blurry. With starting it earlier this year, again, while the items are fresh, I think will lead to easier budgets for next year. So certainly the point that you're making is well taken. And going forward, I can see the gentleman sitting here would take that into consideration.
How far does this adjustment take us? If this is a result of the last payroll, what happens on the next payroll and the next payroll?
So the next payroll will be the first payroll.
It cleans up 2022.
Yes, yes.
Any other questions? Thank you. Any other questions?
No questions, but I'd like to make a motion that we move from the reserve fund, the amount of $4,050.69 to be transferred to Medicare contributions. Do you need the account number?
What I would recommend, Sue, is as proposed, and that will be all encompassing.
Okay, so from the reserve fund, we're taking 4059.69. Oh, excuse me, let me start again. Transfer from the reserve fund the amount of $4,050.69 as proposed in the request for transfer before us.
Second. All in favor? Let's start with Sue. Sue?
Susan Lorenz, aye.
Peter Roach, aye.
Bill Pruitt, aye.
Bill Mel, aye.
Ron McKay, aye.
Andrew Horton, aye.
Doug White, aye.
Let's have it. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you all.
That's all I.
That's it. So you can adjourn your meeting.
Take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Great, thank you.
Chairman, I'll make a motion that we adjourn. We reset, go into recess. 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5-minute recess should be sufficient for cable and Karen to get set up.
Yes.
So you second it?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And Peter Karen is an aye. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you coming in.